the same visual designer we use for web applications. So it's really the same thing. But there are some differences, things you have to kind of take into account with mobile that make them different from other from regular sort of web applications. Mobile apps, they tend to expect the screen to be completely full all the time. So instead of having, like in a browser where you can have something that you scroll left and right or up and down, and or it could be just part of your screen or something like that. But with mobile, they expect it to always like fill up the whole screen. And because mobile is usually on a touch interface, like an iPhone or an Android where you're touching the screen, you also have to deal with, the sort of differences there, like a mouse over effect, for example, wouldn't work very well on a mobile device. Or clicking a button, you need to make sure, that the button is big enough to, to be able to click it easily on a tiny little screen that somebody might have for their phone. So there's kind of these extra considerations, but otherwise it's really the same sort of thing. And probably the most tricky thing to deal with is the fact that in most environments anyway, there may be several different size screens that you're working with. So you may have a phone and then an iPad, which are completely different size screens, or even between an iPhone and an Android phone, they have different size screens. And plus, when they rotate the device, the screen dimensions kind of change. So we have tools to assist with this sort of thing. And if I go to our Design tab here, we've got the ability to set the canvas size. So the canvas, again, is this middle section here that looks like a sheet of graph paper. That's where we build our screen. But if I change the canvas size, I can make it the size of whatever I want to design for. So this, for example, would be the iPhone size screen. And we can select from any of these sizes. Now this comes set up with iPhone, iPad, and these different Android sizes. But you can also create your own. So you can go in and do edit sizes. You can create your own screen sizes as whatever you want. So if you have a new device that we didn't include here or something like that, you can always go in and define your own sizes for whatever you're doing. But anyway. So now that I've got this canvas size to be the size of an iPhone, I can try to drag and drop and build my app very much like you would in a desktop app. But we always recommend using something called a layout with mobile. And the idea behind a layout is that we can use it to change as the screen changes. So we can, this helps deal with this problem of having lots of different screen sizes. So if I drag this layout was one that was designed to look the way, mobile users should, want to have their screen. But anyway, if I take and drop it in here, there's a little maximize button in the corner. And once I've maximized it, it's going to be the full size of the screen. So if the screen changes, it will simply stretch to the new screen size. And when I say that this one is meant to look like mobile, what I mean by that is it's got sort of divided into these sort of three sections. So there's a bar at the top, there's a bar at the bottom, and there's this sort of bigger middle section. And that's what you typically see, and at least frequently see in mobile apps, is that sort of a layout where you've got like a title bar and you've got like a button bar or something at the bottom, and then the main sort of screen is in the middle. But anyway, so the really interesting thing, like I was saying, is this will actually stretch to the screen size. So if I were to, for example, rotate my phone, and we've got a button here to simulate that, it changed the orientation, and this layout just stretched, changed its dimensions to that new layout. Or if I were to change this to a completely different screen size, like say this larger Android phone, it's stretched now to be the size of that phone. So it's changing, as the screen changes, and it'll do this at runtime too. It'll actually change as the screen size changes. So this is how we can deal with people rotating the phone and wanting to make things adapt, for example, to the new orientation. So as an example here, let me put on like a title on my screen here, and we'll call this Scott's app. So now I've got this words as a title on the top of my screen, and if they were to run this, it would just show up there. And on an iPhone in this particular orientation, that looks nice and sort of centered. But the way Profound UI by default is keeping track of that is based on, its coordinates on the screen. So it's saying, it's however many pixels down from the top and however many pixels over from the left. And the problem with that, again, is if you rotate it, that's no longer going to be centered because it's still this many pixels down, this many pixels across, but that's not center when you put it in this new orientation. And the same would be true, of course, if I change the screen size to an Android or an iPad or something else that's a different size from this iPhone. So we've got some extra tools up here to deal with this. We can change this title to be a percentage so that everything is set up instead of being a certain number of pixels over and down. It can be a percentage of the screen over and down, and it can be a percentage of the width of the screen. So if I do that up here and I change this and I say make it, for example, 60% of the width, so now the way it's keeping track of it is it's saying, okay, we've got 20% of the screen from here to here. So it's a percentage of whatever the layout is. And then we've got this being 60%, which of course leaves 20% over here, so it'll be centered. But then as this layout changes to different sizes, now that this is set up as a percent, it also will, adjust. So if I go to the other orientation, it's still centered. The distance here has changed, but it's the same percentage of the screen. Or if I change this to something completely different, like an iPad, which is obviously much bigger, it's still centered. So that's how we we kind of make it possible for developers to go in and make an app that kind of adjusts to different screen sizes and can handle whatever type of environment you're in. So that's kind of the basic idea behind that. The other thing that we often want to do in mobile is lock something to one of the sides so that if you rotate it or whatever, it stays there. So let me use some buttons as an example. Maybe I want to have like back and next buttons on here. So maybe I'll put the back button there and the next button over here. So again, it's the same sort of problem. If I rotate this, because by default this is calculated with a certain number of pixels down, a certain number of pixels over. If I rotate this or change the screen size or something, it won't be against the edges anymore. So in this case, instead of centering it, I really want to connect them or anchor them is the term we use to the edges. So we've got a tool for that as well, and I can say I want this next button to be anchored to the right-hand side of the screen. I want the back button to be anchored to the left side of the screen, and that way, it'll always be connected to the edge, no matter what the screen size is or what rotation it's in. And so those are the kind of things that you do when you're designing a mobile app, and that's really the way that it's different from the types of screens that we looked at for a PC app. So the difference is just taking that kind of thing into account.